Welcome to the If So podcast. This podcast is sponsored by WeightWorks Clinics, the Netherlands.
Hello everybody, this is Sjaak Pauwels. I'm a surgical resident in Klinikum Lippe in Detmold in Germany, and I'm here to introduce you to Professor Paulina Salminen for our next If So European Chapter podcast on career planning in metabolic and bariatric surgery. Professor Salminen is a professor of gastrointestinal surgery at the University of Turku in Turku, Finland. She's a well-known personality in the scientific world in gastrointestinal and metabolic and bariatric surgery. She initiated a lot of high-impact trials which all have been published. A few of them are the Sleeve Pass trial, the APAC and the MAPAC trials. And during this conference, you will take over the presidency from our immediate past president, Professor Nicolo Di Lorenzo, the presidency of the IFSO European chapter. So Professor Salminen is a perfect guest to talk about career planning and career planning in general. Hello, Paulina. First of all, congrats on the presidency. Welcome on our podcast. We're going to talk about career planning. How are you doing at the moment?
Thank you very much for the kind invitation, and I'm doing very good. So I'm very honored and happy to start with the IFSO EC presidency, and I think all of the clinical surgical scientists will say the same. Is like you're doing surgery and science and then life, so combining that is quite of a juggle sometimes.
Yeah, that's to state it lightly and to state the obvious, because if you read the summary of your resume, that's impressive and inspirational. And what I would like to know when we're talking about career planning, can you tell us a bit about your own career? Did you plan things, or was it just a natural course of events?
Well, I think both and. So if I start with the idea that I decided already in medical school that I want to be a surgeon. So in all honesty, that's all I've done after graduating from medical school. So I did go straight into surgery. At the same time, of course, I had my two kids while being a resident in general surgery and then gastrointestinal surgery. I started doing my PhD while I was a surgical resident, and I did that specifically, maybe that was one of my first career plannings, because my initial project was on adhesions, postoperative adhesions, and that would have required lab work. I do a lot of translational research too, but I'm a clinical researcher. So at that point, I decided that I want to do clinical research. So my PhD was on open versus laparoscopic fundoplication for GERD. So that was kind of the first step. But for planning, I think the answer is yes and no. You have to keep like an open mind. In my mind, you have to do it that you keep your eyes open, because you never know where the next opportunity is going to be, and whatever you do it well. So put your effort and choose still the things that you do, because you need to focus. There are so many interesting things in the world, but you cannot master them all. So you need to have focus and do a lot of work. Be prepared to do a lot of work.
And that's an interesting story, because I think if you put in a lot of effort, you'll eventually reach your goals. That's basically what you're also telling us.
Sometimes the tricky part is that you have to decide what the goals are.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what you were asking.
Yeah, that's indeed true. But on a daily basis, what just to put it into perspective, what does your day look like if you need to fit in all that work in 24 hours, for example?
Okay, this is gonna sound bad even in my ears, but it's a very long day. So probably my median working day is like 12 hours is good. I'm happy if I can get away with 12 hours. Probably the median is around 13 to 14. I do a lot of journal work too. So usually I do clinical work, of course, during the office hours. Not every day, but at least 2 or 3 days a week. So then I try to juggle everything else. So writing textbooks, being an editor-in-chief, having my PhDs. I currently have 16 PhDs under my supervision, and 9 have completed. So, and with all the current RCT that we have enrolling, so all of that. So it is, I do have a lot of, I have a to-do list that has priority 1 on it, priority 2, but I have to have a to-do list because otherwise I forget things. So, but it needs organizing. You need to be organized, and then you also need to put in your life outside work somewhere within that schedule.
Mm-hmm. And that's also an interesting point, because I work exactly the same way. Prioritize your work clinically, scientifically, etc. Just for the younger generation, I'm guiding a few students too, and they all want to do surgical training in the US. They all want to publish papers more than we've done in our careers in a shorter time frame. What do you tell the young generation in terms of career planning? Where should they start? Because it's a jungle out there.
It is, I understand your question. It's a very difficult one, because I would tell them that, you have to be interested in a huge variety of things, because if you want to have sufficient surgical experience, you cannot focus on something too early, because you need to have the wider surgical experience to be able to handle all the stuff you need to handle in your work. But still, at a certain point, and that's kind of the window of opportunity, you have to figure out what you want to do, because if you want to be a true expert in some field, you do have to focus on that. And I'm a bit biased for being a clinical researcher, but in my mind, the surgeon scientist idea is the fact that you actually do that clinical work that you're doing the research on, because that is the only way you can actually ask the correct questions. Otherwise, you're not able to grasp the idea that what you actually should be doing research on. And that also, I think, is a great synergy, so they both align with each other. So that's exactly what I do. My elective practice is now mainly metabolic bariatric surgery. I used to do a lot of surgical oncology, but now it is metabolic bariatric surgery. But I still do on-call surgery, and I do a lot of research on acute appendicitis. So it's kind of like within that puzzle. So you have to get the pieces together, focus, not too early, but in sufficient time in order to be able to become an expert in that field. And do find a good mentor, because that's key issue also for clinical work and for science. Find a good research group.
Okay. And how do you motivate your own PhD student in clinical electives?
You should probably ask them this, but
I'll rephrase. How do you try to motivate your electives and your PhD students?
I've been quite successful. I think the ability to get. I'm still enthusiastic about the work we do. I focus only on the questions that I think are worth asking and answering. So I don't want to do research just to get more publications. That's not the idea. I want to actually answer a clinical question by doing that research. And I think maybe that enthusiasm is something that they kind of, that spreads. So I've been able to get them contaminated with my enthusiasm for the topic. So that may be one thing. And then I also actively remind myself that every single time they succeed, I will, bring that out and say it out loud that you did a very good job, you did this, because we don't really often the positive feedback is something that we're not that accustomed to. But I think it's crucially important that people know that they're doing good work. So and everybody chips in. It's like my research group is like a great synergy. So somebody does this, somebody does that, but everybody chips into the same thing.
So the infectious enthusiasm.
Yes.
That's
infectious enthusiasm.
That's the trick. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And then also giving everybody, a chance, when you do your job well, you will go forward.
A very often asked question is for our female colleagues. How do you combine motherhood with a clinical or scientific career like this? Or like
Again, I would go back to my kids for this question, but I have to say that, of course, I'm absolutely biased for this, to say that I have two brilliant kids, that they are amazing people, and I kind of think that I have not been able to ruin it for them. So it's like, in spite of me, they're very bright, intelligent young people. And I think it's like, one piece of advice that I do give my PhD students and my juniors is that when you do have kids, is like, when you go home, even though you go home a bit later than your maybe average standard mom, that's also applies for dads. But it's when you go home, you are there 100% at the time you are actually there. Because if your kids are small, you get home at like 6, they pass out at 9, so that's 4 hours. You do that and you spend that with them. Don't try to do anything else at that time. So that's what I did when they were small. So every time I was at home, even though I was not home as much as probably the other moms, is that I was there. But I do remember one time my daughter is now 27 and my son is turning 24. So my son, when he was 4, he was asking me, because I was on call, kind of a backup on call, and then he was asking 3-year-old that what kind of a doctor you have at the hospital, because he knew that if it was like a more experienced one, I would probably not have to go to work. And then I'm like, okay, this is bad. If a 3-year-old knows how to ask that, so that's. But no, I think just again, focus on the things that you are doing at the exact moment, and remember that your kids and the family are actually the thing that counts. So you have to incorporate life into your schedule.
So the time that you are present.
Yes, then you are present. You need to be fully present. Then you can work after they're gone to bed. Then you do some more work.
That's actually a good tip, because that's a lot of it's an extra dynamic to your life, and can potentially have influence on children, on yourself.
Yes.
So those are secret tips on the podcast over here. That's very, very, very good. When we go further down the line in a career path, people graduate, they're a general surgeon in your department, and they want to pursue a certain specialty, for example, bariatric metabolic surgery. How do you advise those young surgeon colleagues? Where should they start? Where should they end?
I think they should start by finding a good mentor. Like I said, that applies for clinical work and for research. And they should really aim to try to get to work at a place that does that surgery, and you would have a plan for that. I would also incorporate being active, networking nationally and also internationally, because learning from your peers and learning from your seniors on that field, you actually gain a lot more, and by working together within the clinic and outside the clinic, within the research, because I don't think we have to remember that you can't separate science from surgery, because we're doing evidence-based surgery, or we should be doing evidence-based surgery, and that's why we really need to kind of incorporate that, and I'm just supporting. So find a good mentor that will support your journey and your path on to being a good surgeon scientist.
But then finding a good mentor,
that's difficult. That is very difficult, and you may have to be ready to do some major life changes in, like, where do you want to work. So because if you decide on that this is what you want to do, then you actually have to find a place that will allow you to grow into that role and into being an expert in that field.
And would a mentor is important for your progress, for social support, for support in the workplace. Did you have a mentor? Or how did you find your mentor?
Well, my mentor is like maybe not in such a traditional way. For laparoscopy, yes, because my surgical mentor was one of the pioneers of laparoscopy when they started in the 90s. So that was actually the story goes that how I ended up in metabolic bariatric surgery is that because I was interested in laparoscopy, and in Finland we were a bit late to start. We started in the 2003 something. So and he just one day told me that you're gonna start doing this, full stop. And I'm like, okay. And first I was like, I'm not really sure, because we did not do metabolic bariatric surgery in huge numbers at that time. I'm like, what, is this a good idea? But then I started reading about it, and then I was like, what on earth have we been doing for the past 10 years? It's like, we have not done this. Like, there's data out there that shows that this is exactly what you should be doing. So that was kind of it was not a discussion whether I would start doing this, but it ended up being a very crucial thing in my career. So I'm very happy for that. For research, I think I kind of mentored myself. So I started learning randomized clinical trials from scratch, and then moved on forward. But and I think that's also for collaboration. So if you start planning a trial, please consult the people that have done it, so you're able to, avoid the mistakes. I've done almost every single one, and in every RCT I will make a new one, so somebody else can benefit from my mistakes. I'm happy to share them.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah.
People
Yes.
probably talk about that topic
Yes.
in a next one. How does that work, mentoring yourself in research?
It takes way too much time. So I've actually, when you ask me, is like how I try to get my students and my PhD students and the juniors to be involved and enthusiastic about research and surgery, is I decided that I want to be the exact opposite, that I will actually provide them very good supervision. And when I see that they start learning, that just really makes me so happy, because if they are with me like 3-4 years at least, and I do have a lot of postdoc researchers that have stayed with me, and that's like, I've trained them, so it's like a huge advantage for me, and to be able to open some doors for them, so they don't have to do all of that by themselves. They avoid the idiotic mistakes you do by doing it by yourself. So I think that's also one thing that I really try to take everybody forward. So I've never seen a line of active people, because it's always the same. So everybody that's active and wants to do stuff, I think these people should be supported.
Yeah, that's something I think so. I think so too. It's not easy sometimes, but when the intention is there, it should be
Yes.
should be done. You're now taking over the IFSO European chapter presidency.
Yes.
In terms of career planning, in terms of supporting the young generation, do you have any plans for the chapter?
Oh, we definitely have tons of good plans for the chapter, and I think we need all of the active people that do want to participate within IFSO and IFSO European chapter. So we're happy to bring all the active people in. There's always something to do, and I truly encourage everybody to actively trying to participate within the chapter, because together we can actually make it so much better. And we have such a good group of active people within the council that we're working with, trying to take the whole field forward. So I am really enthusiastic about starting with the IFSO European chapter, and we have a very active young IFSO part. So all the young colleagues are more than welcome to join our activities.
Yeah, that's something I can say for my own, because I'm still young and still active also in the European chapter. In terms of career planning, I think we heard enough. Just tell me two of your secrets. One, what do you do when you don't work?
What do I do when I don't work?
In terms of hobbies, sports.
That's funny, because somebody was asking me about hobby. I said, would you define hobby? But probably I have to say that looking at my hours, science probably kind of is one of my hobbies also, even though it's also my work. But my actual hobby is that I love being at our summer cottage. I love the sea. I have a summer cottage island, and I do fishing. I'm such a badass fisher.
And can you define badass fisher? What's the biggest fish you found in Finland?
No, it's not about the size. It's also about the numbers. I do it with fishing nets, and it's like I provide the food. My husband actually cooks it, but I do provide the fish.
That's awesome. What's your favorite go-to fish dish then?
My summer cottage.
Very good.
Yeah,
very
Finnish
good.
archipelago.
That's sounds like an invitation for all of us. One final question: what's your go-to statistics book?
My go-to statistic books is my own biostatistician.
Very good, because that's one of the questions I get a lot. Where do I learn statistics? Where do I start? Where do I end?
There's actually a few good books that are made. One of them is in Finnish, so you can't really read it, but there is a similar one, Statistics for Dummies. But I think this is something that should be mandatory for each surgeon to have a kind of a baseline level knowledge of statistics, because otherwise you're not able to read the papers, and then you may end up in totally wrong conclusions. My very huge privilege is that I've had my biostatistician with me now for 15 years, and if she quits, I don't think I'm going to do research anymore. So that kind of gives you the idea how important that is.
That's a good compliment for the biostatistician.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Paulina, thank you very much for being our guest on the podcast. All the best for the presidency, and we'll be there to support you.
Thank you so much.
Any final words for our listeners?
No, thank you for listening, and really please engage yourself within IFSO European chapter. All of active people are more than welcome.
Awesome. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and until the next one. Bye-bye.
This podcast was sponsored by WeightWorks Clinics, the Netherlands. Thank you all for listening.